presents Extra Rounds. Live from the Fight Pass studios in Southern California, it's Extra Rounds on UFC Fight Pass. Along with Ray Longo, here's your host, TJ DeSantis. Extra Rounds.
Well, don't turn it off when you hear this. Ray Longo is not here, unfortunately. But, he's taking care of business in Las Vegas tonight, as we were in store for a pretty exciting night of action, and it all led up to our main event as we saw the former Bantamweight King, Petr Yan, take on Dvalishvili. Hey, everybody, it is Extra Rounds here on UFC Fight Pass. I am TJ DeSantis on this fine Saturday evening. Appreciate you joining us. I'm here with the man, the myth, the legend, the former teenage dream, now just a dream, and one of our favorites. It is Chase Hooper. Chase, how are you?
Backstage right now. So my teammates over here getting ready for fights tonight. So busy day. A lot of fighting going on this Saturday, though.
I mean, you gotta go out there and do your thing. You know, when we ask you to pull double duty here on UFC Fight Pass, you don't hesitate, and that's what makes you a multiple-time Journalist of the Year.
You do what you got to do.
Right.
It's all about the sacrifice.
Yeah. Let's talk about tonight's fight card from top to bottom. Really a grappling heavy night. A lot of action, a lot of exciting submissions, some floor sequences. And when you have the main event like we do against some pretty high level athletes, and the grappler that is a takedown machine in Dvalishvili, you're going to get some exciting sequences. And really started yesterday with the weigh-ins and the stare down. These guys really got into it with one another. What are your sort of thoughts on a fight going into it when you see those emotions sort of flare up? Do you lean one way or the other as far as thinking that Petr Yan who threw that sort of chopping weird right hand to the neck of Dvalishvili at the weigh-ins? Does that make you think differently about the approach that you might see from one of the athletes?
Yeah, I feel like usually when guys are going extra hard at the weigh-ins, I don't know. I feel like, not to say that Petr Yan is scared. I feel like not a lot of guys are scared of their opponents, but he definitely is. I feel like that showed that he was more worried going against Merab. Instead of his usual cool, calm demeanor, he's trying to play the psychological game a little bit, and that's showing him trying to pull out some of the extra tricks and all that. Trying to do something unexpected to maybe try and get in Merab's head to, maybe start off on the right foot here today. But, obviously it didn't work out. And I think a lot of people saw this coming, honestly.
I mean, stylistically, if Merab gets his game going, it's incredibly hard to deal with. And we saw that. He sets a record tonight for most attempted takedowns. He landed a bunch of those takedowns as well. Maybe he didn't hold the position as well as, maybe he would like to. But Petr Yan is a guy who does, make adjustments and get back up to his feet. But, more impressively than Merab just going for all of those takedowns was he handled himself, more than handled himself on the feet tonight, and, did a really good job. You say, if you're on point with reading this and looking at their fight stylistically, that a lot of people expected this. Was this exactly the sort of fight you expected from Dvalishvili?
I think, honestly, yeah. I was maybe expecting him to try to hold Yan down a little more, but again, Yan's so slick. He, we saw that in the first Aljo fight. He's got a pretty solid trip game, and he got a couple takedowns of his own. But Merab just got a different pace. He's got a different level. And kind of similar to Makhachev and Volkanovski, once that wrestler is able to land a couple takedowns, it really raises up the level of his striking because his opponent has to worry about multiple things where, the wrestler just has to worry about not getting hit. And I think we saw that a lot tonight where, after Merab got a couple takedowns, he was able to land a lot better shots on the feet. Because, again, Yan had to worry about both getting hit and getting taken down. So, that was textbook.
Yeah, no, without question. I think the Sarah Longo camp really couldn't have drawn it up much better. Now, with that in mind, game plans and strategy, it's a very big thing and adjustment, especially at this high level in mixed martial arts. I always tend to think that the champions are the ones that adjust on the fly the best. But, at the same time, if you've got an airtight sort of game plan, you never have to get to plan A, B, or C. How much do you think the strategy is really sort of on display in this fight? Because, Merab is a machine when it comes to his takedowns. You know what he's going to implement. But, having Aljamain Sterling, share the octagon with Petr Yan multiple times, do you think there was anything that Aljo gave Merab to better incorporate sort of his plan? And were there adjustments there that Merab maybe made that we didn't necessarily see that was sort of strategy from Aljo?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of again, when Aljo and Yan fought, Aljo was able to hit a couple of those little trips on the feet, and he was out wrestling Aljo at one point. I believe it was the first fight more so than the second. But I think having a teammate that has fought a guy like that, you can see like the little tricks, because I'm sure Aljo and Merab have a lot of similarities being training partners in tendencies and all that. Takedowns that they prefer. Training with similar guys and all that. So I'm sure that was super helpful to have, a guy who spent, at least, more than a half hour in the cage with a guy like that. Obviously it helps out a lot, but, Merab's style, he's just so, got such a crazy pace. And I think that was the game plan going in, is just keep pushing forward. And obviously it worked out.
Yeah, no, without question. Now, here's the thing. A lot of people are going to make a big deal about the fact that Merab Dvalishvili, was number 3 coming into tonight's fight, gets his hand raised by beating number 2 tonight. And then you have Aljo, his teammate, who is the champion. Obviously when you're one of the best in the world, you want to become a champion. And Merab said that, of course, I want to become a champion. But he doesn't want to sort of let the narrative of the teammate thing really sort of, get in the way of their friendship. And, they're making the right decision, I think, by not fighting one another. That camp in particular is incredibly good at being loyal to one another and not letting business get in the way of things. And, maybe I'm reading it wrong, Chase, but I feel like this is one of those times where you have teammates that are on the same page with one another. And I don't know if it's because they're on the same page that I don't want, the world to pressure Merab into feeling like he's being slighted by not fighting Aljamain Sterling. Like, I respect the fact that they're both, so okay with it. There were times in the past where I look at UFC teammates where I wanted to see fights. The most obvious one they ended up fighting, and they weren't necessarily teammates so much, but when Tito Ortiz was doing some training with Chuck Liddell and they were friends, Tito said there was a pact never to fight. Chuck didn't agree with that. They obviously fought. John Fitch and Josh Koscheck were both, high-level welterweights training at the same gym at American Kickboxing Academy. They never fought, but there was some general intrigue there. Many people wanted to see Tito and Chuck. Many people wanted to see John Fitch and Josh Koscheck. Do you feel like the world is similar to sort of my output or outlook on this, Chase, and the fact that, like, if they're so cool with it, why would I want to pressure, those guys to make a fight happen that otherwise doesn't necessarily need to?
Yeah, I think it's a lot different with those guys. Like, their team seems a lot more together than some of these bigger gyms. Where, like, a good recent example was Usman and Burns.
Yeah,
both training down in Florida at Stanford, but apparently not close enough to where they weren't going to fight each other.
Right.
So.
I mentioned John Fitch and Josh Koscheck. That's about the only sort of teammate rivalry or whatever they didn't actually go to fighting. You mentioned, Usman and Burns, they fought. Chuck and Tito, they fought. Producer Frankie mentions John Jones and Rashad Evans. I mean, and that was really hard. Like, Rashad was a Greg Jackson guy pretty much from day one, and he was forced, on his own, accord to leave the gym. It's interesting. I more often than not, these guys that have championship aspirations, they favor that over friendship. And, I don't know. Like, I understand to make money and to make the most amount of money in the sport, you got to go try to fight for a title. But I guess I find it refreshing here between these two guys that seem to be so okay with it. I do think that some media members and fans alike are going to point to the fact that Merab said, only me and Aljo know who the real champion is. And I was like, okay, is he saying that because he's the one who gets the better of the two in training? But, everyone's going to sort of poke and try to pry and figure out if these guys are going to fight. But, yeah, I don't think there's any chance in hell that they're going to share the octagon together.
No, it seems like Aljo's really trying to angle for his shot up to 45. Maybe he'll defend the belt once or twice, and then try to head on up, take on Volk, and maybe leave the 35 division for Merab.
What would be really interesting to me is if we saw Aljo move up, and similar to Volkanovski moving up to fight Islam, crowning an interim champion. If Aljo moves up to 45 and they were to put a interim belt on the line with Merab fighting for it, now it would change everything if Aljo had to come back down to 35 and Merab's the interim king.
Definitely. That would be but I think and you can kind of see it in the way that they interact with each other. Like, they're main training partners.
Yeah.
They're helping each other get ready for every single fight. And even I saw him when I was down in Vegas. They train together all the time because they'll bounce back and forth between Sarah Longo. They'll train with those guys, and they'll come out to Vegas and train for a while. But they're always together. I mean, they're always the two best guys in the room for each other. Same weight, similar styles. They can kind of push each other. World class, obviously. So I think I don't think we'll end up seeing them fight, but if I had to guess, I think Merab's wrestling is, that pace is undeniable. Who knows if Aljo has any tricks up his sleeve for, maybe snatching up a guillotine or something in the middle of that.
Right. If you're just joining us, we are Extra Rounds from UFC Fight Pass. I'm TJ DeSantis. He is the UFC athlete and UFC Fight Pass Journalist of the Year, 11 times over at this point. It is Chase Hooper. Looking at Petr Yan, he's in a tough spot now. Coming off his last fight, it was a fight a lot of people thought he won. He did lose to the Sugar Show in Sean O'Malley, and now Petr Yan, who at one time was the king of this division, seemed to be unstoppable. He'd won 10 straight UFC fights, after his debut, but now he's lost 4 of his last 5, and that for a lot of athletes can be debilitating. I don't know if it was just a style matchup tonight that, was sort of too much for Yan to overcome, or if we're starting to see him take a step backwards. I thought he was very competitive and made a very strong case, if not won the O'Malley fight. But tonight, while he didn't look to be out of his element, he also didn't look like he had the abilities to beat Merab in really any way, shape, or form in this fight. What are your thoughts on, grading the sort of performance tonight, and what does it say, about the future for Petr Yan?
Yeah, I mean, as I was watching the fight, I was kind of thinking round 3 would really determine it, because I feel like Yan plays very much that boxing style of fighting. Like, he takes oftentimes, he takes off the first round or two to kind of let his opponent, wear themselves out a little bit. He plays that really high defense, starts to kind of examine the guy's moves and all that. And then he really picks it up 3, 4, and 5 and usually, gets the win. We saw that in the Sandhagen fight. But I think that's just hard to do against a wrestler. I was really surprised Merab was able to keep that pace up. We obviously saw Yan start to kind of catch up a little bit, get a couple takedowns of his own. But obviously, Jan's mainly a striker. And I think that's obviously who he does the best against. Just that was a crazy hard stylistic matchup. I'm sure everybody knew that going in. But yeah, we'll see. I'd love to see him fight, maybe the winner of Cheeto and Sandhagen again. I think that'd be a great fight. I think Jan's a guy that he was a great champ while he had the belt, but now, maybe we'll see some more fun fights out of him. put him against some strikers and watch the violence unfold.
Yeah, on the latest installment of MMA Math, Dean Thomas broke down this fight and said that if it was just a 3-round fight, he felt that Merab would be a big favorite. Being that it was a 5-round fight, he kind of leaned towards Yan having more up his sleeve than we saw tonight. Why wasn't Yan able to sort of take over down the stretch? That third round, like you said, I think was sort of pivotal, because if he was going to get momentum going and try to steal the fight from Merab, that's the moment he had to go. But it just wasn't there for him. Was it a mental thing? Did you think that we saw Yan fight in a way that made you think that Merab was in his head, or this was a more sort of mentally taxing sort of affair, having the history with Aljamain and everything leading up to this fight?
I don't know about mentally, but Merab physically wasn't giving him any breathing room. I think that makes it hard, definitely, for a guy to get started when they're just constantly on you, like every second. Those almost 50 takedown attempts, that's 2 a minute. He wasn't giving Yan much breathing room to strike. And when Yan was striking, he had to be worried subconsciously about the wrestling. I feel like more than anything with Aljo or anything outside of the cage, because I feel like a lot of times it's too fast for you to think about that type of stuff.
Yeah.
It's more in the moment. And Merab was not giving him any room to breathe or any room to get any momentum started. I'm impressed with that pace. That was insane.
Yeah, you bring up sort of that crazy point, 50 takedown attempts. It's a 25-minute fight, 2 a minute. I remember when Damian Maia fought Tyron Woodley, and, I remember breaking down that fight, right after it happened, and I said something along the lines of, like, Damian Maia was spamming the takedown button. If it were a video game, he's hitting it over and over again. And that was sort of a product of the fact that Maia couldn't stand in trade with Woodley. He wasn't comfortable doing so he tried to get takedown after takedown. What's most impressive, I think, about that stat with Merab is Merab wasn't just going for takedowns. He was, landing on the feet. He was, very well-rounded with his overall attack. And, anybody that's going to stand in front of the machine, and that's exactly what he is, I don't know how you really stick to, especially if you're a striker, sitting down on your punches and throwing in confidence, because even when Merab does stand with you, he's still averaging at least, 1.5 type of takedown attempts per round.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. That was there was hardly any time where he was on his feet. And even then, like you're saying, like he wasn't, Yan wasn't able to sit down on his shots because he had to be worried about those takedowns. It was just a constant up and down for Yan, of like up striking, thinking about countering takedowns. So he's got to just like constantly be bouncing up and down, and down. Where Merab was able to be more confident and play his A game. And it worked out tonight, obviously.
And that's the thing I like about Dvalishvili's takedown game as well, because he's good inside the clinch. He can catch you off balance and do some sort of sweeps there, but his outside shot is just flawless. And like, you can try to load up on maybe a knee, but God, if you don't get a knee when he tries to shoot in, like, you're definitely gonna get taken down. And if your game plan is to sprawl, how do you move forward? How do you sit down on those shots? And when you are a striking based fighter like Petr Yan is, like, it's just too much to overcome. What do you see the rest of the division doing to try to stop Merab? I mean, we've seen him have some ups and downs and some difficulties in fights, but he tends to overcome more often than not. If you were sort of trying to come up with a game plan for someone that is going to fight Merab Dvalishvili, how do you overcome just that effective attempts? Because again, I think a lot of people think that if you don't get a takedown after you attempt it, it's sort of a failure. That's not necessarily the case. If you miss on a takedown but get your opponent thinking, that can have a great effect on their ability to fight their game.
Yeah, I think honestly, we saw like strikers have such a tough time against Merab and his style. I think it's not even going to be a better wrestler. I think it's going to be someone with maybe a little bit of like a 10th planet type of game, throwing something weird against Merab.
So be
I think
comfortable
the
on
leg
your back.
lock-
Try to play that guard game.
Yeah, and you know, maybe something more on the leg lock side of things, like really just not trying to get tied up by Merab. He's got such crazy pressure, and he's able to, you know, if he's able to keep you on your back and stay square, like you're not gonna be able to work a lot. But it's gonna have to be those weirder submissions. You know, maybe throw an Imanari roll here or there.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, because people aren't having a ton of success with the striking against him. It's going to be super hard to out wrestle Merab in that amount of time. So I think the jiu-jitsu is the way to go.
You know, it's interesting. We're looking at highlights of Merab Dvalishvili fighting Casey Kenny, who is a phenomenal wrestler. Kenny, you know, wrestled, granted it was like Division II, but he wrestled at a high level Division II, and, you know, is a really good striker. He has, you know, great Muay Thai for being a wrestling-based athlete, and you can see here, obviously, Merab sort of, you know, bullied him and manhandled him. And, yeah, like more often than not, I think when you see two good mixed martial arts based, you know, wrestlers compete, you end up with a kickboxing match, and that's just not the case with Merab Dvalishvili. Like, good luck. He's going to take you down, or at least his attempted takedowns are going to make you fight differently. And, yeah, it's a tall task, to say the least. You know, Aljo has talked about moving up. He's obviously got Henry Cejudo. If I was Aljamain Sterling, I got to believe that in his heart of hearts, he doesn't want to hold his friend back. I would foresee him moving at one point or another up just to sort of clear the way for Merab. So, but obviously we'll see what happens. I mean, maybe Merab's chasing after Henry Cejudo here in the not too distant future.
Definitely. That'd be a crazy fight to watch. I definitely buy the pay-per-view on that one.
No, 100%. Let's talk about the co-main. We saw Alexander Volkov make very short work of his opponent tonight in Alexander Romanov. You know, how important is it to really sort of establish, you know, what you're going to do in a fight in that first minute? Because I feel like Volkov tonight just, you know, got his game going, and Romanov was just like, all right, this is happening, and oh wait, it's over. Because I mean, he didn't have much for a very aggressive and effective Alexander Volkov.
Yeah, I mean, there's always like a little bit of tension at the very start of the fight, really before you guys start touching each other. So it's on the guy, you know, whoever wants to be first and really set the pace. And I mean, Volkov obviously did that. He came out, he set the pace, and I think he. I mean, obviously he landed the shots he needed to, and he really you can get guys on their back feet like right out of the gate if you come out confident and throwing hard like he did, and it worked out perfectly.
You know, obviously, I was talking earlier about, you know, fighting mixed martial arts at the highest level, and the athlete that is most successful more often than not is the one that shows that they can adjust. When you prepare yourself for a fight, Chase, and you go out there and you find that, you know, you have great success in the first 90 seconds, does it ever catch you off guard? Because, I mean, obviously you want that game plan to work, but when things are almost going too well too quickly, like I could think maybe you would start to overthink things, because if you get too aggressive, say you think your opponent is hurt, you empty the gas tank too quickly, especially, you know, these guys at heavyweight. I can't really ask you about the heavyweight mindset, but, you know, I'm curious, like if things are going well, how what do you look for to really know whether or not it's time to push down firmly on that accelerator and try to get that finish?
I mean, I'm usually a pessimist when it comes to fights. Like I go in with really low expectations, and then you get to be surprised when things go better than expected. But I think main thing is especially at the high level, is not like you were saying, like not getting too caught up in like, okay, I think I can finish him now. And it's just, you know, kind of taking what comes and whatever comes your way, and really not, especially at heavyweight with these guys, is really not going out of your way to go wild, especially if you feel like you've hurt him on the feet. Not going, you know, to blow your wad in the first round and at heavyweight, you can always catch one of these hard shots. So it's just staying composed, staying, you know, kind of trying to be like a little more reserved about it, I guess. Just be confident, like walking them down, just keeping that pace and knowing that you got that guy hurt, you got him scared, and yeah, just not to rush it. You know, you got a full 5 minutes, so why throw it all in the first 90 seconds?
Yeah, you know, that's sort of what I was thinking, but also too, like, you know, at heavyweight, man, it's just like you're never really safe. You know what I mean? Like, this is a division where these guys have insane power, even when they're beyond tired. You know, it's the moment you start to feel like, okay, everything's fine, I'm firmly in control, and then whoopsie, you know, you're staring up at the lights. But you know, that was not the case tonight for Romanov, who you know, is out of there very quickly. Alexander Volkov does what he does best, and he gets a stoppage tonight, TKO, ref stoppage in round number 1. We got it almost feels like a rematch because we were supposed to see it a few weeks ago when Nikita Krylov was supposed to fight Ryan Spann. You know, Ryan talked a lot about coming into this fight and trying to do things the right way. He changed his training up. You know, we've seen these sort of inconsistent performances from him in the past. And tonight, unfortunately, it just didn't go the way that he wanted it to. You know, all those changes, you know, he might be in a better spot tonight. He really might be. But the bottom line is, you know, he got caught in a triangle choke, and that's, it doesn't matter how well prepared you are or how strong you are or how much cardio you have in the tank. If someone starts cutting off blood to your brain, you're going to go to sleep. And he chooses to tap. Do you think the fact that this got moved at all, because Spann was ready, Krylov had to pull out last minute, how much does that mess with you? Because, you know, a lot of athletes want, you know, this camp to go a certain way. They want to peak at a certain time. And when you push the fight back 2 weeks, like, good luck trying to feel or be in the same position that you were leading up to, I mean, the entire fight. Like, these guys weighed in, you know what I mean? Very difficult to try to get back to that sort of mindset, just push your camp back or extend it after you've been through an entire fight week essentially, but not fighting.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, fight week has its own rhythm, and like once you go through that, it like helps get you ready for the fight. And then to just have that not come to fruition and get pushed back, I mean, that messes with your whole life. You know, it messes with your diet. You got to rehydrate a little bit, but
Right.
not gain too much weight in that time. And you have to be ready to fight 2 weeks after. And I mean, yeah, it's because so much of your life has to be based around the fights that even at getting pushed back a couple weeks is, you know, could be detrimental. You don't know if he had a vacation plan. He's got to push that back now, and he's got all these extra weird things that he's got to worry about. And that's, I feel like that's something that a lot of the fans don't think about is these guys have to live outside of the fights. And, you know, even getting it pushed back when you've already spent the week in Vegas, that sucks, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe staying out there for an extra 2 weeks, you're not going to be able to see your wife and kids and all that. And you got to change your lifestyle. And I mean, it's just a lot of tumultuous stuff going on that, yeah, I mean, it can affect anybody for sure.
I mean, just for, you know, my sort of not fighter's mindset, you know, on the outside looking in, like, I would think after I would go through that weight cut, I'm like, all right, tomorrow I get to fight and have a cheeseburger the way I want it, or a pizza, you know, just to try to like live it up a little bit, because, you know, we're creatures of habit, and we want to work. And I understand, you know, you got to, you know, keep your nose to the grindstone, but you know, as an athlete, you don't really get a lot of pleasures in life when you're preparing for the job. And when you can't have the things that, you know, make you happy in life, you know, that are, you know, food and the like, all of a sudden that extra 2 weeks of having to be, you know, rigid in camp, if you will, I mean, mentally, that's just got to be draining and taxing.
Definitely. I mean, I love my food, and I get right on it after weigh-ins. So that'd be rough trying to, you know, not gain too much, and then again, like, go and cut weight again.
Yeah.
Go back to being, you know, on that strict diet. That's it's not a good time, especially the water cut.
Yeah, no, I was just going to ask you that. You cut the water, the final couple days leading up to the fight. You yourself, how do you feel a week or two after? Do you feel like, I definitely fought a week or two ago because I went through that? Do you feel that 2 weeks after the fight? Do you feel anything like that, or do you feel pretty refreshed and replenished, that far out?
Usually, because I'm just eating the whole time after, but you got to cut weight again. That's definitely going to affect it. Because the weight cut with the water is such a huge strain on your body. I can't speak for these guys at 205, but a lot of guys are putting themselves and putting their bodies like to the absolute limit. So it's.
Well, let me ask you this, because there are some sort of conflicting. Again, I'm not a neurologist. I don't know what it takes for your brain to, get back to what it was before a water cut, et cetera. But do you feel like it takes a couple of days before your body is actually fully rehydrated, or is it hard to tell because you also are going through a fist fight?
I mean, you definitely feel better a couple days after, but. Yeah, I mean, the adrenaline carries you through, but I mean, if guys weren't cutting as much weight, I think you'd see a lot better fights with their bodies at the peak performance. But, that's the name of the game. I blame the wrestlers for that, but, it is what it is. And whatever the science says about it, that's just what we have to do. And that's, just the way it is, I guess.
I mean, I'm not a doctor, and I understand why the IVs aren't allowed. With the idea that you can mask things, and it's harder for USADA to understand exactly what you are and aren't putting in your body if you do get an IV. But that's one thing I do feel like is beneficial. Back in the old days, is athletes would get that IV treatment right after they weighed in. And, what happens when you treat someone for dehydration? If you go to the ER and you're dehydrated, I mean, they're giving you, an IV almost quicker than you can fill out the registration forms. You know what I mean? Like, that's just the go-to. And I wish there was some sort of alternative to, cutting out the IV therapy for these athletes, leading up to a fight, because it's obviously something that, helps them out tremendously if they're able to take advantage of it.
Yeah, definitely. I was never cutting crazy weight when IVs were allowed anyways. But, I mean, if you had maybe some UFC staff that were able to, set up the IV drips instead of guys just doing it on their own. I don't know. It's but yeah, like you're saying, like any doctor after a weight cut is going to be like, this man needs an IV right now.
Right. I mean, that's the thing. It doesn't matter if your weight cut is going fine and you go to the hospital, they're going to say you're dehydrated and need to have an IV because you're dehydrated and they want to rehydrate you. That's why it's always funny to me when an athlete, claims that they're sick or not feeling well and they go to the ER mid-weight cut. Like, the ER is going to tell you that you need to rehydrate. There's no other answer that they're ever going to give you because you're dehydrated.
Yeah. I mean, any good doctor is going to tell you, like, you need an IV. And I guess we'll see with the sport. No, you're good. It sounds like there's maybe a bit of a chance of them coming back with the talk around Makhachev Volk. With if a doctor prescribes it to you, which again, like you're saying, any doctor would. Right.
I mean, if you want to talk about therapeutic use, like that is the most therapeutic use of anything you would put in your body as an athlete. Because, I mean, it's just another way to have water put into your blood.
Exactly.
So, all right. I mean, if you and I agree, I mean, why can't everyone else agree? Just figure it out, guys. So
get Dana on it for sure. Let him know.
He's Chase Hooper. I'm TJ DeSantis. This is Extra Rounds from UFC Fight Pass. If you want to sound off on something, you can give us a call. 917-UFC-TALK is the number. You can also text that same number as well. That is 917-832-8255. We are recapping the UFC Fight Night card that emanated tonight from the theaters at the Virgin Hotels in Las Vegas. I love theaters for combat sports. It's a pretty cool vibe tonight. I love the cozy confines of the UFC Apex, but it is neat to see the Octagon hit the road. And next week, they're going across the pond. It is UFC 286 in London, inside the O2, and it's a homecoming for Leon Rocky Edwards. He is the UFC's welterweight champion. He defends his title for the very first time against a familiar foe in the former champ in Kamaru Usman. Usman owns one win already over Edwards, and was very dominant in their second meeting. But anything can change. Like we were talking about, the proper adjustments need to be made if you want to be a champion at this level. And Leon Edwards, I don't know if it was necessarily an adjustment per se, but he still just believed in what he could do, and he kicks Usman upside the head, gets his hand raised, and now defends for the very first time. What are your thoughts on their third meeting now, the rubber match between Usman and Edwards next week in London?
I think, honestly, we're going to see more vintage Usman, more like him Masvidal 1. We're going to see a lot of foot stomps. I don't think he's taking any risk this time. I think he's just going to hold him against the cage and, get that title back. Usman's obviously, he's a crazy high-level wrestler. And even before that fight happened the second time, that was my thought, is that if there's any way Usman loses, it's going to be him getting too, not necessarily reckless, but too comfortable, I guess, on the feet.
Right.
With the guy who's, a more seasoned striker, I guess.
Sure.
But I think smart money is Usman by decision, foot stomp TKO.
Foot stomp TKO, I like that. I mean, I might have a foot stomp TKO if you were to stomp on my foot, because, now you got me going talking about foot stomps, Chase. You can't do that. Like, you can't send me down the rabbit hole. Like, I'll start bringing up Paul Varlins and Marco Huas. But, styles make fights, right? That's the old saying. And stylistically, I know what Leon Edwards was able to overcome, but can you overcome that sort of hurdle 2 times? And in relatively a short amount of time as well. It's a very quick turnaround for their rematch. And I think that favors Usman. I understand he was knocked out, but, he's a guy that is always confident within himself and his abilities, and there's a reason that Leon Edwards, the champion, is the underdog going into this fight. Any thoughts on the idea that it's going to be a very pro Edwards crowd inside the O2? Does Usman have anything to sort of try to overcome when you think about fighting in hostile territory?
I don't think so. I mean, obviously, I would hope they're pretty pro Edwards in the UK, but no, I think Usman's a professional, and he's been fighting at a high level for a really long time, and I don't think that stuff is going to get to him, especially not when you have to get into a fist fight at the end of that walk. So I think that'll be pretty easy for him. But I do think, I think he's going to take it nice and slow and maybe play that safer game. I don't think we might see a little bit of booing from the crowd, but I think he'll get that title back.
Also on the card, Justin Gaethje, the human highlight reel in action. He takes on Rafael Fiziev. I think Gaethje could be fighting a UK-based fighter, and the O2 might still cheer for him because it's impossible not to sort of love the style and offensive output that Justin Gaethje has. But this is a fight that would be perfect in sort of catapulting Fiziev up the ranks, taking out a tough and always game Gaethje. How do you see this fight, stylistically, and we see Gaethje, who has a great wrestling base, but he's never one to walk away from a fist fight. He likes to be a willing dance partner. Fiziev can crack. Your thoughts on this meeting?
Yeah, I mean, anybody else going for fight of the night's in for a rough one, competing against these guys. I would like to see a little more wrestling from Gaethje. I think that's how he'd get the win a lot easier. Fiziev, he's so dynamic with his striking, and he's got such hard hands. He's, willing to hit these crazy shots, spinning back kicks, crazy high kicks. He's got that great Muay Thai. He's out of Tiger Muay Thai.
Yep.
Trains in Thailand. He's fighting some of the best guys. Training partners with Petr Yan, I believe. And, he's training with these high-level guys. And I think Gaethje's style is more traditional boxing with that leg kick. We'll see if their range is a bit of an issue, but I'd like to see more wrestling from Gaethje, but I don't think he wants to wrestle anymore. I think he just wants to brawl.
And I mean, the more often than not, people aren't going to complain too much. But you're right. He's got a great wrestling base and, doesn't rely on it maybe as much as he should. And, going up against a guy like Fiziev, you might want to see a Gaethje grapple heavy offense. But, yeah, I don't know. I don't think we're going to see it. But, only time will tell. As I mentioned, 917 UFC Talk is the number, 917-832-8255. I got a text here from Omar in Boston. He says, Chase, I know you're moving up to lightweight in your next fight. What is different for you at this point in your training camp and your day-to-day life as an active UFC fighter?
I guess the most different is little more focus on the weights, not necessarily trying to gain any size, but just trying to think about strength training a little more in that professional sense, I guess, and not just kind of winging it. And the nice part is not having to cut as much weight. I'm still like about the same weight I was when I was making 45, but I'm going to be cutting 10 less pounds. So hopefully you'll see me less sucked up on the scale and better performances. I feel a lot better, closer to my natural weight. So we'll see if 55 is the move.
You mentioned, obviously not cutting as much weight, but do you feel like that walk around weight will change as well? Will you allow yourself to get bigger, whether it's, eating food or, hitting the weights and actually trying to put on more muscle? Will that mindset ever change in between fights?
Definitely trying not to put on a ton. I feel like making 45, I end up cutting probably about 10 pounds of muscle that I don't think I need to. So hopefully trying to stay around where I am right now. But the issue is still being young. Like, who knows where my body will end up, just growth-wise. I could end up at 70 before the end of my career. Who knows? But that's just puberty and all that finally setting in.
Puberty.
Yeah.
Right. It's funny, unless you're named like Jose Aldo, more often than not, athletes move up, the weight divisions as they get older. Aldo's a guy who seemed to move down. But, I'm curious your thoughts on the overall division and the competition that you're going to run into at 55. Do you feel like the styles of the athletes that you'll fight at 55, are greatly different from the styles of the fighters in the featherweight class?
I mean, I think the issue is that I'm going from one of the most stacked weight classes in the UFC to another one of the most stacked weight classes in the UFC.
I think 55 is the most talented division, pound for pound, in mixed martial arts.
Yeah, I mean, 35 and 55 are up there right now.
Yeah.
If you look at the top 15 for 35, 45, 55, and 70, like, they're all killers, all super well-rounded. There's really no I'd be a lot better off if I was trying to go 205 or heavyweight, but I don't think I'll get that big.
I got a question here. Producer Frankie sent it to me. MI Tweaks, I guess, probably in Twitch, asked if Chase is on the secret juice on YouTube. I mean, you calling up Paulo Costa and figuring out what that secret juice is?
I ran into Paulo Costa once at the PI, so I may or may not be on the secret juice.
I mean, I just want to know what it tastes like.
It's good. It's good stuff.
Okay, you just confirmed it. See that now? I'm gunning for your Journalist of the Year award.
Yeah, breaking news for sure.
Yeah. Are you like? What do you usually do for food leading up to the fight? Like, obviously, you have to be sort of restrictive, throughout your entire camp. But the week of, how much are you eating? Like, calorie wise, that final week leading up to the water cut.
Well, the really nice part is having the UFC Performance Institute and having the staff there, because the whole camp they'll help you out with food, nutrition, supplements, all that. They set me up with the meals with they're with Trifecta now, or my bad, Icon.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're with Icon now.
Believe it or not, they sent me a freezer full of food. Icon Meals did. It's
Hey,
not bad.
It's good. I like it.
Yeah.
It's a lot better than what I was doing to cut weight, which was just not eating. And then same thing with fight week is before UFC, I wasn't used to eating that much food during fight week. They still are able to get you 3 meals a day. They're small portions, but high protein, so you still feel pretty full.
Right.
And again, the staff is so knowledgeable. Like they're doing this every week, so they have answers to all your questions. They have it super dialed in, and I go from not eating a ton to eating, those 3 meals a day during fight week, and I'm losing more weight than I was at home.
It's interesting. Obviously, a lot of people think about diets and being calorically restrictive, and yeah, that is true. If you want to lose weight, that's the case. But one thing that I always find interesting to hear athletes and dietitians talk about is like macronutrients, and you can cut out calories, but if you're eating things more like high in protein, you can find it actually harder to eat all of your food when you're taking in less calories than you were before, just as long as you're putting the right kinds of food in your body, and like protein. I mean, there's a reason that people eat protein bars, man. Those things sit heavy in your stomach.
Definitely. I mean, I trust the guys that that's their job, and I'm just the dude that gets punched in the head for a living. So I figure I'll leave it to them to tell me what to do as far as the food goes.
There you go. Is that what your wife says to you? Like, let me make the decisions, Chase, like you get punched in the head? Like I should be the one that makes all the decisions?
I mean, I more try to pawn the decisions off of her based on that. But,
Smart man.
Doesn't work all the time.
Yeah. My wife actually tells me that I talk to people who get hit in the head, and that's why she should make all the decisions in my relationship. So
fair point.
Yeah. I'm gonna let you get out of here. What do you do? It's like obviously you're backstage somewhere at some fights. Are you cornering an athlete tonight, or what are you doing?
Yeah, we got a local show here at the Mucko Shoots. Got teammates getting wrapped up here. We've got 5 fights out of the 10 or 12 on the card, so it's gonna be a big night here.
That's bananas.
Fights we're supposed to start at 7, but probably not quite there yet. In another 15 minutes, we'll start.
I mean, is your chair just in like one of the corners tonight? Like, if you got that many athletes out there, you might as well just stay there.
Yeah, that's fair. We got a whole green room back here. It's pretty sweet. We just got some new guys, and it's a solid setup. Having a good time.
Awesome. Well, I'm gonna let you go. I appreciate your time. Thanks for hanging out. And back-to-back weeks, I'm hanging out with Mr. Hooper, which is a lot of fun, and I appreciate your time, sir.
Hey, yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Our pleasure. There he is, Chase Hooper, kind enough to give us some time here 2 weeks in a row on Extra Rounds, and we're going to have him back before too long. Next week, I hope to catch up with Ray Longo, who, again, was victorious tonight, being in the corner of Merab Dvalishvili. We'll probably get Ray to talk about that fight moving into UFC 286 next weekend. I'll be in Boston, Massachusetts, coming up pretty much all this week. Big boxing card coming up on UFC Fight Pass Thursday night. Hollywood Fight Nights hits Boston. Yes, Boston going Hollywood as Tom Loeffler brings his Southern California-based boxing event to Boston, Massachusetts. You can watch it on UFC Fight Pass. In the main event, the undefeated King Callum Walsh puts his flawless record on the line. The fighting pride of Cork, Ireland, trying to rise up through the ranks. He's done so quite well. 5 fights, 4 knockouts, 2 of which have come in the very first round. He hopes for win number 6 coming up Thursday night. And of course, you can watch it over on UFC Fight Pass. If you are not a member of UFC Fight Pass, do you get hit in the head a lot because you're making bad decisions? You got to sign up, step into our world. It's the best place for any combat sports fan, not just a mixed martial arts fan. Boxing fans as well, grappling fans. We had Polaris in action today on UFC Fight Pass. Chris Weidman competed out there. So obviously, you're a mixed martial arts fan. You're watching Extra Rounds right now, where we've been talking about nothing but mixed martial arts, but a lot more than just MMA for you over on UFC Fight Pass. And Hollywood Fight Nights is really must-see TV. King Callum Walsh, probably going to be a really big deal in boxing. And if you tune in on Thursday, you can say you've been following this young man's career pretty much from jump. But also over on UFC Fight Pass, you got the entire UFC library, not to mention some of the greatest promotions in the sport's history. Pride FC, Strikeforce, WEC, and not to mention a slew of other live events, Fury Fighting Championship, CFFC, so many others. You know, I always hesitate to name some because I would be here all day if we kept naming all the great content partners we have for you to tune into. Not to mention you got podcasts like this one available, Extra Rounds. It's Time with Bruce Buffer, the Anakin Florian podcast, so many. So step into our world right now over at UFCFightPass.com. Sign up. I think there might be half off the year if you use the promo code March. Don't quote me on that, but I do believe it. Try it. Try it at least when you check out. Use the promo code March. And if that's not it, hit me up on Twitter at TJ DeSantis. I'll do my best to help you out as much as I can. But that being said, only if you tune in to Hollywood Fight Nights next Thursday, live on UFC Fight Pass. Again, want to thank Chase Hooper for hanging out, recapping the UFC Fight Night card. That, again, if you're just joining us, saw Dvalishvili pretty much dominate Petr Yan from bell to bell, getting his hand raised 50-45 across the board. We'll be back next week to talk about UFC 286 going into the show from London, and, of course, coming out of it as well for another installment of Extra Rounds. All right, that's it. I'm done. Thanks for hanging out. Not even staying up late. It's an early one, so go have fun tonight, kids. Chase Hooper, I'm TJ DeSantis. Thanks for going a few extra rounds right here on UFC Fight Pass. Chat soon.
This concludes our live broadcast of Extra Rounds.
Are we still on the air?
Watch the archive anytime on UFC Fight Pass or Facebook.com/UFC Fight Pass. You can also listen to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or anywhere you listen to podcasts.